Um, so let me share my screen. So good evening, everybody. It's good to have all of you here. This is our 21st book club discussion. And this time we have Brave New World, a dystopian novel by Aldous Huxley. So let's begin. Um, so today, let's see a little bit about the author and the historical time period in which he had written this book and why did he feel the need to write about it. There were some mixed reactions to the book, so we'll also have a look at that, and we'll see the 1984 actually got a lot more. I think it got a lot more eyeballs than Brave New World. So we can just have a look of 1984 versus Brave New World, and we'll discuss some of the themes in the book and about totalitarianism and technology, consumerism, etc. And then we'll end with some quotes from the book. Hi, Meghalai, good to have you. Okay, so let's continue. So about the author, Aldous Huxley was born into a family of noted scientists and writers. His father, I think, was a biologist, and he is very popular for advancing Darwin's theories. Um, Huxley attended Eton and Oxford, and he was skilled and knowledgeable in both literature and in science. An eye disease, in fact, nearly blinded him at 16, and that was when he had to give up his medical career. He wrote prolifically throughout the 1920s, and he published numerous essays, sketches, caricatures, and 4 novels. He established himself as a very successful writer and a social satirist. In fact, he says that he's so thankful that he got the eye disease at 16 because otherwise he wouldn't have really been a writer as successful as this. He would have definitely gone into his medical career. So the historical context, when was Brave New World written? It was written just after the trauma of the World War I. In, I think, 1932, the book was written. And that was when totalitarian states had sprung up in Soviet Union and the fascist parties were gaining power in Europe. And not only that, but also another world war seemed to be on the horizon. And Huxley had seen that there has been a major advancement in science and technology. The world had become industrialized, and all this scared him more. He felt that this brave new world, which we are entering into with so much advancement in science and technology, is actually a negative utopia. And another thing for Huxley was that he had visited America and he'd seen Henry Ford's model of production. And he saw this mass production where there's no variety and there's no mistakes. The same thing keeps getting produced again and again. And that's where the question arose in his head, what if there is a production of standardized humans, just like how there's standardized items? Also, this was the time when H.G. Wells' novels were hugely popular. So Huxley, in fact, he wrote a letter to Mrs. Arthur Goldsmith, who was an acquaintance of him, that he had been having a little fun pulling the leg of H.G. Wells, but then he got caught up in the excitement of his own ideas. So initially, Brave New World started only as a parody of H.G. Wells' novels, and later it turned into something else. So Huxley's anxieties also, in fact, grew on his trip to the United States. He was outraged by the culture of the youth and the commercial cheeriness over there, the mass consumerism, sexual promiscuity, and the inward-looking nature of most of the Americans. Also, on the boat to America, he read the book My Life and Work by Henry Ford. And he saw the book's principles being applied in everything that he encountered after leaving San Francisco. So that's also another reason why the whole book was written. And as you know, Ford plays a major role in the book. So just like how we would say, oh God, it's oh Ford for them in Brave New World. So as far as the book is concerned, it has a lot of mixed reactions. So in appreciation, of course, definitely there were a lot of many big authors and literary critics appreciated and praised the book. Rebecca West called it as the most accomplished novel Huxley has yet written. Uh, Scientists also, in fact, appreciated the book. The brilliant British biochemist, he said that it's Mr. Huxley's remarkable book. That's how he used to call it. And Bertrand Russell, a British author and philosopher, also praised it, stating Mr. Aldous Huxley has shown his usual masterly skill in Brave New World. On the other hand, there was also a lot of criticism for the book. So it was dismissed by some reviewers as an unsophisticated joke and as repugnant in its account of promiscuous sexuality. And an American columnist, Granville Hicks, even attacked Huxley as a privileged person, saying that his book only showed that Huxley was out of touch with actual human misery. So, so Huxley had written the book in the thought that there's a lot of consumerism, people are individualistic, and there's not really much of human misery in America. People are more, focused on their pleasure, which is why this kind of opposition came to his book. Illustrated London News carried an article by G.K. Chesterton in 1935, where Chesterton had actually criticized the book a lot. He explained that Huxley was revolting against the age of utopias. Later on, however, most of his critics, in fact, they felt that the book probably is more true, but it is too far ahead of its time. So Chesterton felt that Huxley's entire book was just an attack on the advancements which are being made in science and technology and his displeasure of the same. So we have a quote from that particular article. After the age of utopias came what we may call the American age, lasting as long as the boom. Men like Ford or Mont seem to many to have solved the social riddle and made capitalism the common good. But it was not native to us. It went with a buoyant, not to say blatant optimism, which is not our negligent or negative optimism. Much more than Victorian righteousness or even Victorian self-righteousness, that optimism has driven people into pessimism. For the slump brought even more disillusionment than the war. A new bitterness and a new bewilderment ran through all social life and was reflected in all literature and art. It was contemptuous not only of the old capitalism, but of the old socialism. Brave New World is more of a revolution against utopia than against Victoria. So they felt that people, though from his article, it feels like though capitalism is something for the common good, which is something which has only been bringing goodness in the lives of people, but still their pessimistic attitude of people is what has come out in Brave New World was Chesterton's view. After this, I thought, without wasting more time, because we have very, very interesting topics to discuss on, let's go on with the discussion topics. So the first one we're going to talk about is about totalitarianism. So why is Huxley's novel scarier and closer to the truth than Orwell's 1984? Interestingly, from the time I started reading Brave New World, I came across so many interesting articles and articles which are more recently written, in fact, about Brave New World. It was just a surprise, in fact. I had never expected it. So one of my favorite authors, Austin Kleon, had written in a blog post about this book called Amusing Ourselves to Death, and which is written by Neil Postman. And Amusing Ourselves to Death speaks a lot about Brave New World and how Brave New World, in fact, is a much more accurate picture of what is going to happen in the world than what 1984 is. And so let's see a little bit about that. So this is the book Amusing Ourselves to Death. It's by Neil Postman. And I just took out a few quotes from it, which were very interesting. So what Orwell feared were those who would ban books. What Huxley feared was that there would be no reason to ban a book, for there would be no one who wanted to read one. Orwell feared those who would deprive us of information. Huxley feared those who would give us so much that we would be reduced to passivity and egoism. Orwell feared that the truth would be concealed from us. Huxley feared the truth would be drowned in a sea of irrelevance. Orwell feared we would become a captive culture. Huxley feared that we would become a trivial culture, preoccupied with some equivalent of the feelies, the orgy-porgy, and the centrifugal bumble puppy, which we all came across in the book. Some more things from the book. As Huxley remarked in Brave New World Revisited, the civil libertarians and rationalists who are ever on the alert to oppose tyranny fail to take into account man's almost infinite appetite for distractions. In 1984, Orwell added, people are controlled by inflicting pain. In Brave New World, they are controlled by inflicting pleasure. Orwell feared that what we fear will ruin us. Huxley feared that what we desire will ruin us. And I felt that this is such a very beautifully brought out, analysis of both these books. In fact, there was this very interesting chart which I came across. Is it visible for you, the chart, or do you want me to zoom it a little?
Yeah, a little zooming would be good, I think.
Okay, let me see.
Zoom it little.
Yeah. So, is it now? Is it better now?
Yeah, much better.
It's okay.
Yeah. So Orwell says in his book 1984, Orwell warned of a future in which people are controlled by an oppressive government that restricted and regulated the spread of information. On the other hand, in Huxley's book, a perpetual flood of irrelevant and trivial information distracts the people from taking interest in anything of importance. Again, here in Orwell's world, communication would be limited between people to prevent conspiring against the government. Here in Huxleyan future, governments encourage mass distribution of entertainment as it pacifies the people and diverts attention away from political issues. It feels so true, in fact. And okay, as coordination, yes, Shamil Raoji, you wanted to add something?
No. Please go ahead, ma'am. Please. It is an interesting slide.
I had one small, while on that point, I just wanted to mention that solitude is a crime in the Brave New World. You're not supposed to be alone at all. So that is the exact opposite of what 1984 says.
Correct. Right. So as coordination of an uprising in Egypt spread on Facebook and other social media sites, the 5 major internet providers which supply roughly 93% of the country's internet shut down service. So this was in Egypt. Here, the Federal Communications Commission approved by a 4-1 vote the merger of NBC Universal, arguably America's largest broadcasting company, and Comcast, its largest cable operator. The destruction and ban of information and media would limit knowledge. Our transfixion with entertainment would drown our desire for real knowledge. In November 2010, the Turkish government reinstated its ban on YouTube, citing content found insulting to the Republic's founder, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk. The popular video site joins a list of nearly 5,000 other banned sites in the country. TMZ.com, a popular celebrity gossip site, currently garners more monthly traffic than Time.com, the reputable news site of Times Magazine, which is nothing surprising. And truth would be concealed through repressive control, and society would allow itself to be consumed solely with that which is amusing, disregarding anything of importance. Here, the Iranian government votes to phase out all access to the internet and replace it with their own network in an effort to control content accessible to citizens. here in 2011, the presidential State of the Union address attracted almost 43 million television viewers, while the Super Bowl was watched by over 111 million people, its largest audience in history. So that's it for us. Let me. Okay.
Yeah, it is something like Brave New World is capitalist dystopia, and that is 84 is communist dystopia.
Yeah,
That is,
I think
yeah.
True. That's a very nice way of putting it. I never thought of it
Yeah.
that way.
It's a good observation. As a matter
Yeah.
of fact, in 1984, actually, things are run through iron fist. That happens in North Korea or Russia. It has got a communist. Very correct.
Correct. In fact, so 1984 was more feared because it was, there was the rise of the Soviet Union was there, and people were most scared of communism and about the control of the state and other things. But Brave New World, no one is really scared of it at all. So they didn't really fear it. I think that fixation on what was there on 1984 was definitely not there on Brave New World.
Even when you read this,
Sorry.
okay, please go ahead.
No, I wanted to ask, when were these two books published? Like, which came first?
Brave New World came first. It was in 1932 or something, 33.
But I think 1984 is to 1924. I think.
No,
No, if I
1940
get
something.
it, no, a Brave New World is come in 1958, madam. And
Brave New World in 1958, is it? 1 minute.
yes,
I
please
forgot.
image.
It's 1932, sir.
32.
32.
32.
32. Yeah.
Okay, 32. And in it is in 1949. Brave New. What is this? 1984.
49. No, correct.
1949. It is 32.
Yeah,
Very
Brave New World
Okay.
came first. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there is another book called V that is in 1924. That's why I got
Okay.
confused.
Uh,
That is the first book. Yeah.
hmm. And the one
is-
which I was talking about, Amusing Ourselves to Death, that was written in 1985. And
Okay.
so much of what is there in the book feels so true to the current situation that it's still surprising that we've come actually 37 years after that, and it's still ringing even more true with every passing year. Yeah. So
I stand corrected. Sorry,
yes.
I stand corrected. It is 1932.
Yeah, 1932. Okay. So
Actually, this book by one, I don't know how to pronounce, one Russian author.
mhm.
It's V. It's again a dystopian thing, and that is the first book, 1924. That is the book.
Okay. Which one of the first dystopian novels.
Yeah. It is.
I don't know why is the name so familiar. Maybe I have a copy. I don't know. The name is very familiar.
Yeah. The author name is, I don't know how to, Yevegne Zamaitan. I don't know how to pronounce it. Sorry. It's a Russian name. I really don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. It is.
Yeah. So in Huxley's world, there's no individual liberty. Citizens love their slavery. It's a very brainwashed, compliant society. They punish people who display any sign of non-conformity. So society cannot make room for a figure like the savage or comprehend him because he refuses to be happy on society's terms. In fact, he chooses solitude, emotion, self-denial, and suffering instead of shallow happiness, conformity, and mindless indulgence. Generally, I just saw a few quotes about totalitarianism, and I felt that kind of tied up so well with the book and what we saw here in this thing, which is why I wanted to share it with you. Totalitarianism strives not towards despotic rule over men, but towards a system in which men are superfluous. Total power can be achieved and safeguarded only in a world of conditioned reflexes of marionettes. So marionettes is basically puppets, string puppets. So totalitarianism is never content to rule by external means, namely through the state and a machinery of violence. thanks to its peculiar ideology and the role assigned to it in this apparatus of coercion, totalitarianism has discovered a means of dominating and terrorizing human beings from within. You know, and I don't know. I felt so the whole thing of conditioned reflexes, especially, I felt is so true when it comes to entertainment in our current situation. Even on YouTube, sometimes you can see those videos. I in fact recently got a very interesting comment for our Read, Write, Inspire book club videos, which I post. I think it was some 2 or 3 videos before this, and there was a comment written that among all those cat videos and all those things which you usually find on YouTube, you suddenly stumble upon something like this, which is so good and you know, and so informative. But it's a shame that it hardly gets any views, you know. So that was very interesting, and it felt so good that someone is appreciating what we are doing. But so I think that's very true. Someone would be more happy to see you know, a snake video or something of a crocodile running on the streets, and all these kind of videos, in fact, gather more than millions of views. But something which is necessary doesn't. And mostly the most important you know, fixation in YouTube comes with what do you title your video. So how are you, even your video inside may not even have anything on whatever you're mentioning in your title. But when your title has to be such a clickbaity one that they would want to click on it and watch it. So I think all that is also a conditioned reflex.
That goes for all kind of writing, right? Even when we are writing a blog post, it's like there's this headline generator. So what kind of a headline will get the most views? So it has to have an emotional content, and it's so it's just designed to basically get people to click, irrespective of what's inside. Like videos, you understand their mind, but even what you're writing, the whole SEO thing has made it people just click on what looks clickable. Immediate catches an immediate interest. So there's a whole science behind that.
Really, yeah, it's so you know, it's so surprising also in a way. So even in Facebook, I thought Facebook is completely free, and there's not really, people don't really earn through it or something, is what I was thinking. But even there are some channels or places which have those, you know, like I heard some popular even food videos. In fact, they are paid by Facebook to put up those quick 60-second videos of, you know, cooking something. And usually those come sometimes with ads also in between. So very surprising. So, you know, to be contacted by Facebook and paid by Facebook for something, for doing something also. So that's also exists. So they just, I think completely the phones have understood how we behave, and they know what exactly they need to do to tap us. There was, Suchi has shared the name of the book. It's there on the chat. So Sarat says, yes, the potential to keep us distracted has increased by at least 100-fold today on account of social media and sharing sites. An interesting read in this is The Attention Merchants by Tim Wu. Okay. Now, going on further, okay. So I thought, of course, natural progression to the next discussion topic is the enslavement by technology and why we should fear our phones. So there is an over dependence on pleasure and stimulation, which we can see in Brave New World. So Huxley argues that the more human beings harness technology to guarantee human happiness, the more they will end up enslaved by technology to the neglect of higher human aspirations. He says no big brother is required. This is by Neil Postman. No big brother is required to deprive people of their autonomy, maturity, and history. As Huxley saw it, people will come to love their oppression, to adore the technologies that undo their capacities to think. And remember, this was written before the phone. Okay, people will come to love their oppression, to adore the technologies that undo their capacities to think. I don't know what postman will think of us when he sees us now. So again, another quote by Neil Postman: "A peekaboo world where now this event, now that, pops into view for a moment, then vanishes again. It is a world without much coherence or sense. A world that does not ask us indeed, does not permit us to do anything. A world that is like the child's game of peekaboo, entirely self-contained. But like peekaboo, it is also endlessly entertaining." I think even the news has become like this, which is something which Neil Postman talks a lot about in his book, where he says that earlier when you wanted some news, you would go to the newspapers. So newspapers, when you read the newspapers, it's like you are having a conversation. Your thoughts are getting connected. You're thinking about things, and you're wondering how far does the news item probably, substantiate what you already know about certain maybe political situations or anything, religious commentary or whatever. So you can have an active, conversation with the paper, for the want of a better word. But when it comes to news, it's immediate. And what has happened now is they fill their news channels with so much of irrelevant, gossipy, celebrity news that the real important information is completely submerged. We don't know the new tax rules, how are they affecting us? We don't know about economic development. We don't know about GDP. And we don't even think about all this because there's immediately another day, another news, another thing. Not even another day, I should say another hour and another news item which comes up. So Neil Postman talks about this a lot in his in his book Amusing Ourselves to Death. And in fact, I read another article also which talks about it, and which says that that particular author of the article, he says that he decided to go for an entire year without reading the paper. So instead of completely not reading the paper, what he started doing was he would read, let's say, a 2-week-old paper. So the Monday's paper would be read on a Monday, but 2 weeks later. And he says it didn't affect him in any way. He says, I knew everything what is happening. I was clear with whatever is happening, and there was no immediate reaction. In fact, most of the time, when I read it after 2 weeks, it's already resolved and everything is fine. So there was nothing for me to get excited about. And I think it was very interesting, even with news itself. News itself has become an entertainment now. So stopping science and technology was also another very, very interesting thing which came up in the book. In our fourth time, Mon Muses, this is towards the end of the book where he's having the conversation with the savage. They seem to have imagined that science could be allowed to go on indefinitely, regardless of everything else. Mass production demanded the shift from truth and beauty to comfort and happiness. Universal happiness keeps the wheel steadily turning. Truth and beauty can't. So I really, it was really interesting to see how science also, he says, it cannot be allowed to go on indefinitely. Now we've reached till this point where we are able to give universal happiness to others. And also we are able to control, we are giving universal happiness, we are having economic stability, and all that is enough. In fact, this kind of made me feel, and I would say also fear a little bit, that maybe tomorrow we come across something else. Just a second, I think somebody just, let me just, 1 minute. Yeah. Okay, so I think even for us in today's world right now, probably we are in a place where we are so addicted to maybe the phone, or maybe there's so much of Facebook and Instagram and everything. maybe there is a science or, there is some new technology that comes up by which we can limit our, our phone usage, or maybe Facebook would get itself turned off if it runs for more than 15 minutes or half an hour on our phone. Let's just say that if there is something like that, I think the Facebook wouldn't allow that technology to even come out. Even before that, probably they would buy the company. So I can also, I felt that is something I felt I could relate to over here when Mon says science cannot be allowed to go on indefinitely, regardless of everything else. And Mon's reminiscence of the 20th century technological progress is one of the most prophetic notes in the novel towards the end. And he says we can't allow science to undo its own good work. That's why we so carefully limit the scope of its researches. That's why I almost got to an island. We don't allow it to deal with any, but the most immediate problems of the moment. So once again, it's that same thing of immediate gratification. What is immediately what I need? Only that much is enough. I'm not looking at something to grow, something to make it a better place. We don't want truth, we don't want beauty. We just want that immediate moment, comfort and happiness. I just thought, that, why should we fear our phones, and why should, I think, we need to be a little bit more careful. Is even social media by itself, it's not so bad. But when we rely on it for news and information, we make it a threat to reality. So even our kids, we tell them don't use Wikipedia because anyone can change it. Anybody can change whatever is the real information in Wikipedia. But at the same time, we are okay with reading a WhatsApp forward and, probably believing what it says. Also, I think one more thing is with social media, the issue is that it's easier to lose your humanity from behind the safety of a screen. And that's why we see these extreme thinking, heated debates, and there's no, this is something that all of you know, words are exchanged, which probably would not be exchanged if both the persons were face to face. So another important thing which we can probably learn from Brave New World is that silence and stillness is so important in life. So ideas and connections emerge in silence and stillness. So being bored is so important for creativity, and it's so important to connect the dots in our minds. However, that's not true. When we have the phone, it's being used in every free moment. It's so difficult for us, and especially we can see it that it's so difficult for the next generation to be still, silent, or bored, even for a moment. And another thing is, of course, politics. So Neil Postman talks a lot about how there was this, once TV came, how they slowly developed that change of an actor being a politician. An actor applying to be a politician was okay, and it was appreciated, and he got elected too. Again, Neil Postman also talks about, and this is before the phones, by the way, phones and social media. He talks about media portrayal and false news. And he says that for politicians, once TV came into the picture, for politicians, they didn't really need to do any work. They didn't need to show any advancement, growth, or development. They just needed to act as if they were doing work in front of the TV, which everyone could see. So just post in front of a bridge, not necessary for you to fight and make a bridge come into existence over there. So, which is exactly what's been happening now. So Donald Trump spent more than $11.1 million on Facebook and Google ads alone in the first 6 months alone of 2019. And Cambridge Analytica, which ran all of Trump's digital campaigns, I think you must be knowing about this. So they acquired the personal data of about 87 million Facebook users via the 270,000 Facebook users who used the Facebook app. So only actually 270,000 Facebook users used this app called This Is Your Digital Life. And from that, Cambridge Analytica extracted not just the information of the 270,000 people, but also their friends and friends of friends as per Facebook. And that's how they had the data of 87 million Facebook users, despite the majority of them not giving any permission to Cambridge Analytica to access their information. Now, this is something about US. Now, what about the rest of the world? It's just the recent case we had of Pegasus, the spyware which was sold by the Israeli cyber arms company, which was found in India in the phones of many important political leaders, judges, journalists, social activists, and others. And it's not a cheap software. It's a software which costs lakhs of money for every phone on which it was used. And Pegasus, in fact, claims that they have never sold their spyware to any person who is apart from a government. So other than a government agency, they have never sold the spyware to anybody else. So what does this mean? Who bought the Pegasus in our country? So who installed Pegasus in the phones of all these people? So what's happening? And why are we also silent about it? So that's something to think about. Okay. So before I continue further, I'll stop the screen share, and in case anyone wants to add anything, I'll give you a chance to speak without me hogging up the conversation always. Hi, Meghalai, good to see you here. Hi.
Yeah, it's such a, what to say, very interesting book actually. Yeah. Just come to think of it, no, so very subconsciously these things have just gotten into our lives without us actually realizing or even taking time to realize it.
Correct.
Yeah, it's like, oh, this is it, it's like just gotten part of our life. Yeah, and when you really come to think of it, it is like, yeah, how far we have allowed all this to get into our lives.
Correct.
To think of it like, okay, you just don't know like how this will turn out. I mean, we are simple people, we live simple lives, and so like the information about our lives it may be relevant or not relevant, but somehow when the whole picture, when you put each unit together, then there is because you just you tend to take a general consensus of what people think.
Correct.
Yeah, what they think, like when I see videos, it's like what I relate to. When I watch particular videos, it naturally shows what I like or towards which side I lean on to.
Correct.
Yeah, which I may not talk about openly.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, I may not discuss about openly, but they are easily able to judge you with what you just watch and what you see. And yeah, coming to think of it, it's like people are ready to talk about it in open forum, it's fine. But when people don't want to divulge, then you're like, oh, it's what to say. It's made me think a lot. I mean, I still haven't read the book, but just hearing that the season is like, oh, I have to attend today. I have to.
I'm so glad you came.
It's very nice of you to do this. Yeah. Introduce books of different genre. Yeah, maybe which I wouldn't have even gone through, or maybe, yeah. Good of you.
Yeah,
and nice to meet interesting people also.
Yes.
Their opinions, their thoughts, it's like, yeah, correct. Nice to know. And we all need a forum to discuss such things.
True, very true.
Otherwise, we just keep it to ourselves, and you may not have people around you who will really relate to that. Yeah, so when you have people around who really relate to that really counts actually.
Yeah,
I may be not able to discuss this topic with my friends because each one has a different kind of thought process and all that. So when like-minded people get together like this, it's a good chance that we also have what to say, get in. Yeah. Nice topic. And anyway, I hope to participate more. And waiting to hear what others have to say.
Yes. Hi, Tarandeep.
Yeah, hi, Archana. First of all, I'm very glad that I came across this forum where we can discuss books like these, because I've not been too much into classics, but having read this book, I really enjoyed it thoroughly. So one of the things that I thought about was that we, at least our generation, we've been through a phase where social media and this technology was not so advanced. So we know what that feels like.
Correct.
But the coming generations, they have absolutely no idea because they're born with technology. So they don't even realize what they've got themselves into and what is happening with their lives, because they are as much involved in all this. So for them, it is a very normal thing. Being with the social media throughout. So they don't know actually the word, what boring means, what to get bored means. And if you tell them that, you have to sit without doing anything, not looking at the technology or the social media or their phones, they can't even spend, I think, 5 minutes without their phones besides them. They wake up with the phones, and the last thing they do is, they are slaves of technology, as has been portrayed in the book also. So I feel if that book was written in 1932, and I see so much relevance in today's date and time, he was so much ahead of his time to think like that. When in 1930s, I can't even imagine if there was any technology which would have led him to think of such things for future.
Exactly. Yeah. It's very true, So I keep telling my son that he travels about maybe 20 minutes to half an hour to go to his school. So I tell him, only that distance that you travel, why don't look at your phone, don't listen to music, don't look at your phone, or don't do something, just. So he would nod his head, he would enter the lift. I would see from the balcony, even before he leaves the building, it's already on.
Yes.
Yeah, your phone is already on. The phone is already on.
Yes,
so there has to be something.
Yes, even when you are sitting with them, and if there is a silence for 2 minutes, they'll immediately go and open their phones, because it's scary for them, I feel, to just sit and do nothing.
Yes. Yes, Shamal Ravji.
Thank you, ma'am. Matter of fact, I read this book with huge interest because the writer and this visionary thinker, he happens to be close to the philosopher teacher, Jiddu Krishnamurti.
Okay.
Actually, in a matter of fact, of whom he said, I am putting it in this chart also. Just a second. Of whom he said, Huxley said, the most impressive thing I have listened to, and it was like listening to a discourse of Buddha, such power, such intrinsic authority. As a matter of fact, even Aldous Huxley wrote the foreword for Jiddu Krishnamurti's The First and Last Freedom, which was written in 1954. In addition to this, I heard our Huxley on YouTube also. Now coming to the book, that is which we are doing, it's very scary to read. Even one of your males also observed the same thing. It's a scary depiction of the future society, and it's a disturbing reading. For instance, one is definitely blown off his feet when you say others' vision of a homogenized society through genetic manipulation, where there is no place for family, love, or creativity, thinking, reading, etc., etc. And people are made to feel peaceful and carefree through drugs. The whole world is as a result of conditioning. What happens is, normally when I read a book, I get connected with a character or an event like that. But this book was different in the sense, actually, once you are completely reading the book, it connects you to the times you are living in and instills in you a sense of fear and helplessness, things that are going wrong or that have gone wrong. Perhaps all dystopian novels tread a similar path, I'm not sure. And if you follow it up with the Brave New World Revisited, which the author wrote in 1958, it is scarier still.
Okay.
And I take your word on. I tried to read both the books, few of the chapters from this Brave New World Revisited and the whole book of the one which we discussed. For instance, in this particular book, New Visited, while confirming what he has written earlier in this main book, he cites actually there are few points. One, say overpopulation will remain the central problem for another century. That is what he uses the word, and perhaps for several centuries thereafter. And a modern technology which we will be going to have, it will lead to concentration of this economic and political power and to the development of society controlled ruthlessly by big business and big government that we are observing nowadays. And the development of mass media, which so wonderfully you have spoken about. The industry is concerned neither with the truth or false, but with the unreal and irrelevant. This is the word also used just when you spoke. With infinite distractions that Sarat Chandran Sir also used actually.
Correct.
Yeah. And then coming to the fourth point, political principles and plans, they do not have any importance. The personality, that also you spoke, the personality of the candidate is projected and marketed by these advertising professionals, which you spoke, wonderful site you have given. That only matters. The methods used to trade the candidate or merchandise the candidate hardly help anyone to know the truth. So these are the four things which he observed in the follow-up book, this Brave New World Revisited. Overpopulation, modern technology, the development of mass media, and political principles and plans. And you made a beautiful comparison between this Brave New World and also 1984. If you go by Brave New World, it's all showy, scientific apparatus and technical equipment, etc., etc. But in 1984, it is just barren, no such frills. And Brave New World, as you observed, characters are in complete satisfaction. They are happy with what they do, whatever reason it is. And as far as 1984 is concerned, they are stressed and suffer from deprivation. And in Brave New World, the regulation is through peer pressure. And in 1984, it is through iron fist of the big brother, like like North Korea or something like that. And in Brave New World, the conditioning happens, is done in laboratory. As you said, genetic re-engineering. There are other words he has given phrases. Anyway, we can understand this. Conditioning is done in laboratory. But in 1984, the prosecution is done in secret. The accuser is questioned by the prosecutor, who also acts as that punishment is awarded, given to them. Actually. This is one thing. And Soma appears actually. The drug, Soma, he has taken the name, it has got a Vedic reference, which I found in Rig Veda, that is there. Rig Veda. And the quote, we have drunk of the Soma, we have become immortal, we have seen the light, we have found the gods. That is how that quote is. Soma finds a reference in Rig Veda. In other words, it takes us to our own Hindu culture for that matter. Perhaps he might have taken Soma from our Vedas or whatever that is. That is one thing. And another thing also, the caste system. The book actually, if you find, there are alphas, betas, gammas, deltas, epsilons, etc., etc. I find it has got a parallel in our own caste system, in our own society of Hindus, Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras, etc., etc. It could be that he has got an inspiration from our caste system. Maybe this caste system is also there in other societies, but immediately what struck me is our own Hindu caste system, etc., etc. This is one thing I found actually. Another thing I found was Shakespeare is everywhere. That somehow maybe it has to do with our author's actually closeness with him, or he likes the books. Othello is referred to, Romeo and Juliet is referred to. You see, Tempest actually, from which he took the title of the book, also is taken. Brave New World, it finds place in our Tempest. That quotation I could not make it out. So Shakespeare is everywhere. That is what I found. Even Mustafa Maund, that what is that, controller? Yes, director, controller actually. He was reading this book, Shakespeare, the resident world controller. And beautiful part of this book is actually when Mustafa Maund and this Savage, they exchange, they discuss. Two extreme points. I really enjoyed those 5 and 10 roughly. He brings his own point of view, and John, that is Savage, and he brings his beautiful point of view. That is a beautiful piece of writing I found.
Yes.
That is really good. Thank you.
Thank you, Shamal Ravji. I think Sarat was also making those points about his being inspired by India for Soma, and there was one more thing also which you mentioned, right?
Caste
Yeah.
system.
Caste system, yes.
Correct.
So,
That
yeah,
caste system is so clearly, I mean, you immediately relate to it, because even in our own caste system, we always ensure that this particular caste, they should conform and do this particular work. And
Correct.
exactly like that, he has put
Yeah.
it in the book. Yeah, that is why.
Only he makes it easier with science, where they don't want to be anything else. So that makes life very easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is no ambition to be anything else.
Correct. Which is also quite parallel with what for us it was maybe earlier years. There was no choice of being anything else in our country also, I think.
But here they
Not
choose
now.
to be what they are in the book.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. Like,
Correct.
like betas don't want to be alphas because
Correct.
there's like so much stress. You have to think so much. So this is the best.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah, they are conditioned. They are kind of conditioned. That is the thing. Here, the main thing is that the individual is happily submitting to the state. Like they are total resignation kind of.
What
a thing.
makes Bernard different? And any thoughts on that? Why does he want to step out of his conditioning? What makes him want to step out of his conditioning?
Could you please repeat it, madam?
Yeah, I'm asking, like, everybody submits to the conditioning, but Bernard doesn't. He knows he's conditioned to act a certain way and he continues to struggle against it. What makes him different?
Because his conditioning is not proper, no? That is what
correct.
it is.
That was a rumor, right? Was that the truth? That was a rumor.
No, that was the truth.
That's mean.
More of speculation. That's more of a speculation. I think.
Speculation. Yeah.
I
just to justify that he is different. People
right.
have to come up with a theory. So that is the theory which was circulating. That probably that is why.
I was hoping he had, he was a more sensible person, or he was driven by deeper thought than the others. But everybody else kind of dismisses
because he's reluctant. Yeah, because he's reluctant to take Soma also. Because if anybody is trying to rebel, they are given Soma. That is what his written say. They are constantly fed with Soma, so that they are always in that state of euphoria or numbness. Yes, but he refuses to take that also.
Yeah, and there's a place he says, "I'd rather be myself and nasty." Not somebody else, however jolly. I love that line. Like the search for being an individual.
Yes.
No, actually, he was always continuously, everybody kind of looked down upon him. So maybe he developed that individual streak, independent streak.
Yeah,
that is
a
the thing.
Yeah. Because although he was an alpha, but his physicality was not that of an alpha. Right? He was short and
he was discriminated upon.
Because
he was
of his
discriminated.
Yeah, because of the way he looked like.
If I recollect correctly, at the process of decanting what they said, there was some defect. That is why his personality converted or developed that way.
Yeah, that's what they said. That they mixed alcohol or some such thing.
They don't call it. They don't call it birth and other thing. They say it is decanting. Birth and other things are hateful words for them.
Yeah.
Birth, father, mother, love, relation.
Family. That's embarrassing. Obscene, they say.
Exactly.
Obscene.
Ranjini, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I did. Actually, I think some points have already been covered. For example, even in an imagined world, right? And this book was written 90 years ago. That even in an imagined world, which seems very different from the current world, it's not really that different in the sense like the caste system, right? So even if you were creating humans out of bottles or test tubes or whatever, that you still needed that hierarchy. You needed people who are able to function at various levels. And I thought it was a brilliant thing to keep them where they were because their skill sets were developed for that, and more importantly, they were conditioned to not cross over. But and that became very apparent towards the end when the savage has these feelings for the new world person, and he's conditioned for monogamy and marriage and love, which are concepts which are very foreign, and she approaches him and he withdraws from her, which ends up making them both unhappy because of their own conditioning, right? One is conditioned that everyone belongs to everyone else, while this guy believes that one person stays together with another person, and how his mom suffered because she had the reverse conditioning after coming into that savage reservation. So again, I thought it was a brilliant book because he had really thought of everything, including that part where death conditioning is done for children, right?
That was terrible. Right.
It was amazing that
point.
Much thought had gone into it, because ultimately the fear of death is what holds us in check in some way, right? The penalty of death is probably something that stops criminals, or well, at least it's supposed to deter criminals. But when you take away that fear of death, you see it as a natural act. That was another thing that was really shocking to me, that how much he had thought of that whole life cycle of that human who comes out of that bottle and until the end. And the third thing, which again was very striking to me, was how they don't age until they die, right? Like, so they look the same and then one day they crack, is how it is described. In fact, this savage's mother, who's not very old but has aged, her appearance itself is scary to the new world people, because they haven't seen an old person. And when you look at people trying so hard to all the anti-aging stuff, right, whether it's a treatment or a surgery or a drug, or all the things that people go after, it's like, what are you trying to do, right? Are you going to look like you're 20 years old till the day you die, and then you just literally crack? It was all very I was totally impressed with how much thought had gone into creating this new world where the whole life cycle of a human had been thought through completely, and then also the gaps in that. And I agree with Shamalaji that the conversations between the savage and Mon were the most interesting, because that's where the intersection happened with someone who at least understood what was there. The other thing which I thought was also brilliant was that the savage reservation existed, right? So you couldn't really wipe out all traces of people being born to humans.
Correct. That was very interesting.
And also the islands where they talked about science and research, which means, yes, maybe the masses or a majority of the masses can be mass produced and subjugated, or whatever, conditioned to do certain things. And of course, this is the same group where, if you are having any uncomfortable feelings, just go take the medicine. But there are people who fight that, right? There are people who are researching on things which are irrelevant. There are savages, so-called savages, living the old-fashioned life. And I think all those still exist today. There are people who are minimalists, who are not buying stuff. There are people who live close to the earth, who are off the grid. So even in today's world, and the thing, I'm a pharmaceutical scientist, full disclosure. So everyone says, what's your drug of choice, right? And medicines get a bad rap because you're like, all this is habit forming, or medicine is an easy solution, or you get addicted to it. And the reason it is because studies are done to show that. But where are the studies to show your addiction to technology? Where are the studies to show that your lifespan is decreasing, or your attention span is decreasing, or your ability to concentrate? We are talking about it, but no one, if Apple launches a new phone or a new social media platform comes, they are not asked to show beforehand what is the impact on humans of this innovation. While any new drug that is brought to the market, you have to show what is the impact. You know, how is it going to heal someone? How is it going to harm someone? Where is the data to prove? And is there a risk benefit? But for technology, there is no such upfront evaluation done, and people embrace it willingly. No one is asking them to swallow technology like they're asking them to swallow medicine. So I thought it was a brilliant book. Absolutely. I just loved it. Thank you for suggesting it.
Great. Yeah, very, very, very true. And one more thing which I was reminded of when Shamil Ravji spoke about, about politicians and how actors are being chosen as politicians and other things which we were talking about. So another thing, very interesting thing which came up in Neil Postman's book, Amusing Ourselves to Death, was how advertisements have actually changed over the years. So he says that, and that's so true and so interesting to see that they have stopped advertising what is the benefit of a product, how what a product does or anything. Rather than that, they have started advertising who's the person who would use this product. So
yes.
Yeah. So I think that was a very, very brilliant way in which he had brought it out 37 years ago, and now it's still continuing very, very strongly now, in fact. So there's anything, so when they sell a Coach handbag, they never tell you how much better a Coach handbag is than compared to another handbag, or or about the quality of stitching or the quality of materials used or something like that. They're going to tell you only that, okay, so this is the kind of person who uses a Coach handbag.
Which is why so many celebrities are endorsing products. Because
exactly.
Yeah, right.
So you all want to be such a person, then you better use this. So that's what a person of that caliber would be using. It's become crazy, I guess.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Shamil Ravji, you wanted to add something?
Yes, ma'am. Coming back to the book again, of all the characters, I liked John most.
Okay.
Whole book on one side and John on one side. Because if you look at it, madam, actually he educates himself morally through Bible and the entire collection of Shakespeare's work. His values are either biblical or Shakespearean. And he can identify and verbalize his emotions and beliefs through individuality. And these things are absent in Brave New World. For example, one example I will take. The Bible preaches abstinence. John decides to save himself before marriage. Anyway, that one. And freedom while staying clear of sin. That also it goes. As far as Brave New World is concerned, it goes against all his beliefs. If you look at it, promiscuousness disgusts him. He hates the idea of soma and wants to have bad things in life as normal human beings are. Sad, other feelings, sadness, obstacles, annoyance, etc., etc. And to overcome them. I shall take the core. During the course of his discussion with Mond, actually, he finally says, but I don't want comfort. I want God. I want poetry. I want real danger. I want freedom. I want goodness. I want sin. With this, he ends his talk. And he is vanished to that island, but that island or somewhere actually where he commits suicide and dies. So John is a wonderful character. Thank you.
Definitely. Okay.
But I feel initially John was very fascinated with this civilized world because his mother had told him so much about the civilized world that it is, the perfect world. And at that point of time, he really wanted to go there initially. So once he went there, he realized that this is not the perfect world, what his mother had portrayed. And I somewhere feel that most of us feel like that, the perfect world would be where only happiness exists. That is what we are after. But ultimately, it all boils down to the emotions that we feel that makes us appreciate happiness more.
Correct.
So that is also one thing which I felt through this book we could understand.
Yeah. Okay, let me share my screen and let's go to the last few discussion points. Okay. So addiction to comfort and happiness. So and an individual's definition of happiness, how it changes. So in Huxley's world, there's universal happiness in the Brave New World that is got through instant gratification. And the main things which are, done to ensure that is, of course, psychological conditioning is used to ensure each citizen is not only suited for their job and role, but actually prefer that role to anything else. Then the promotion of promiscuous sex as virtuous, and the elimination of family or any long-term relationship. So no one will ever face any intense or unreciprocated emotional or sexual desire. And whatever sadness slips through the cracks can be easily brushed away by using soma, and a drug which is having no side effects except it gives the user a very pleasant high and makes all worries dissolve away. Now, the whole concept of universal happiness itself is a myth, which is exactly what Sarandeep was just, talking about. So every individual's definition of happiness itself is different, even among us. While one person might be, happy with minimalism, another person might need some amount of basic things in their house, or another might not be happy with whatever they have. So when you talk about universal happiness, at what cost does this happiness come? And what gets lost when every one of an individual's desires is immediately met? So superficial and an infantile happiness creates stability by eliminating deep thought, new ideas, and strong passions in the Huxleyan world. Without these things, humanity loses the possibility of any more, significant fulfillments, which are provided by the pursuit of truth in art and science, or the pursuit of love and understanding with another person. Now, when there is no possibility of all those things, the adults turn into like an infant, which does not care about any truth or progress or anything, which just requires that moment's needs being met. Which is exactly what happens when someone is completely dependent only on immediate, gratification of their desires. And I think that's like what we spoke, that's very, very beautifully brought out in Brave New World. And when, so Mustafa Mon's tour of the facility, when he does that, he says this: the pre-modern world didn't allow them to take things easily, didn't allow them to be sane, virtuous, happy. What with mothers and lovers, what with the temptations and the lonely remorse, what with all the diseases and the endless isolating pain, what with all the uncertainties and the poverty. They were forced to feel strongly, and feeling strongly, how could they be stable? And also Bernard says this on his date with Lenina. What would it be like if I were free, not enslaved by my conditioning? Yes, everybody is happy nowadays. We begin giving the children that at 5. But wouldn't you like to be free, to be happy in some other way, Lenina, in your own way, for example, not in everybody else's way? And she is, of course, completely confused by what he says. Also, there's the same scene which we were talking about. So the children are conditioned to death. So there is that scene where the savage outcries at his mother Linda's death, and that kind of scandalizes the nurse. And she says, should she try to bring him back to a sense of decency, remind him of where he was, of what fatal mischief he might do to these poor innocents, because the kids are over there, undoing all their wholesome death conditioning with this disgusting outcry, as though death were something terrible, as though anyone mattered as much as all that. And I think that also, this one dialogue kind of beautifully captures that entire feeling which they have towards death. Yeah. So with that, the last discussion topic was about consumerism and how the state defines consumerism as the best state of happiness. So industrialism and consumption as and economic stabilization. So they say about, like, this is something like which happens after the 9-year war or something, and there's some economic instability, after which the Brave New World comes in, and then there's stability in the economy. So they condition people to seek happiness in the consumption of goods. The state ensures its own economic survival. It conditions them to throw out their own clothes instead of mending them, to refrain from any activity like reading, which does not involve the payment of money for goods. Also, Huxley says, according to the logic of industrialism, people end up serving their economy rather than the other way around. So the economy does not serve the people, it's the people serving the economy. So the history behind this particular part of the book was that the Industrial Revolution began in the 19th century, and this led to the production of massive quantities of new goods. And this was something that put off Huxley. So he felt, he also saw that there was no value in producing new goods that no one wants. So what happened was the willingness of the masses to consume these new goods was very crucial for economic growth and prosperity. So it became an economic imperative then that people should always want new things, because if people were satisfied with what they had, then they wouldn't consume enough to keep the wheels of industrial society turning. And even if they are satisfied with, if they repair what they have, mend what they have, again, there's no consumption. So they should want new things. And something which ran parallel to this was that in January 1914, Henry Ford started paying his auto workers a remarkable $5 a day, which was more than double than what was normally the pay at that point, in the industries at that point of time. So doubling the average wage helped ensure a stable workforce and likely boosted sales. How did it boost the sales? Because now the workers could afford the cars that they were making. And this laid the foundation for an economy driven by consumer demand. Another, I think, interesting thing over here was that you can see this kind of consumerism in some countries. Even now, I think in the world also, when we see in the world, I think the kind of consumerism which we see in the book is already existent in certain parts of the world, while not, in fact, as existent in probably some countries. Like, for example, in India, still we have the habit that if our if our microwave breaks down or if our fridge breaks down, we would rather get it repaired. But surprisingly, something which I saw over here was that repairing something costs much more than actually buying a new product. And I experienced this recently. So my microwave, which was something which I bought for some, I think $140 or something, broke down. So I called someone to repair it, and his visit, he told me he'll charge me $60 for a visit, which I thought was okay. Let him come for $60 and he'll repair it. I'm still saving, I'm not paying $140, so it's okay. So once he came, he told me that it would cost another $100. $60 is something that's already a gone cost. It has to be paid. But now on top of that, I need to pay another $100 to repair it, because some particular part had gone and that he needs to do it. So I asked him, you're charging me 60 on a go and telling me it's 100, while a new microwave costs only 140. He said, yes. And what part I'm replacing for you has no guarantee or thing. It can go away in 2 months. But when you buy a new microwave, you at least get a guarantee for a year. So you rather don't spend on this, you go and buy the new microwave. So there's no option at all. You just throw it away. There's no exchange scheme with any electronics shop here. Probably Ranjini knows this. She may also have experienced this here. So it's very, very, I feel consumerism is extremely high in certain economies, while it's still, I think, still can be saved to some extent in some places, at least around the world.
Yeah, I think that's a big difference between developed countries. So even 30 years ago in US, it was the same thing. If something broke, you would just get a new thing replaced, because cost of labor is much more, and many times the expertise is not there. So Archana, you may not have discovered it yet, but if you want to get something altered, right, like you have an outfit, let's say you got something from India and it was the wrong size, and here you want to get it just a little stitch done or minor alteration, either you pay a heavy price for it, which may be more than what you paid for the outfit in India.
Correct.
And by the time you go, give it and get it back, if at all you find someone, or you're just left with it, So, if you're very careful, you learn to buy things very carefully, so that, don't say, oh, I'll get it altered. And those kind of things don't work. Even when you try to get rid of, let's say, old furniture, let's say you buy a new dining table and you want to sell it in India, someone will come and either buy it or take it off your hands. Here, you have to work really hard to find someone to take it away without you paying them to take it away.
Exactly. That was very surprising. So my friend wanted to give away her old sofa or something, and whoever was, she priced it at 0 on the website and she put it up. And whoever was calling her were asking her how much they would pay that particular person to take it away. So they were asking her to pay to take it away.
Yes.
Nobody was ready to even take it up for free. So
you can't ditch used things anywhere as well. So you can't just dump it.
Correct.
Because that's also not allowed. So this is a problem with most developed countries, and this has been happening for a long time. So maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was still dystopian idea when this book was published, but very, very soon it became reality.
True.
We are also getting there. In India also, we wanted to dispose of a bed and we put it on OLX and nobody would take it. And finally we gave it away to our maid. Like, we were just so grateful that she took it away because there's no space.
Correct.
And we are getting there. Although we still find buyers in India, you will find, but not all the time. For disposing of furniture is very difficult.
Correct.
So,
and stitching also, what Ranjani is telling is very true. So here it's easy to go and buy a dress, probably that might be cheaper. But I bought a sari and I had to do that fall picot, which is like kind of like the basic thing which we have in our country. And here there were so many shops which were doing it, for which I paid a hefty sum of money and I gave it to them, and they did such a bad job that sari is actually unwearable. So
interestingly, there is a counter movement in Europe and in UK, at least for some classes of goods, mostly electronics. There is a move, a strong push by various groups to introduce a right to repair legislation.
Okay.
So that remains to be seen, how far it is taken.
That's very good. I think that's they should do something. There's some chat messages. Let me just see. Okay. Yeah, Sarita shared that. Interesting, there's a counter movement. And Shamil Rao ji says, quote from the book, ending is better than mending. More stitches, less riches. Yes, in fact, I had shared this quote in the quote section
Okay.
Yeah, it's a very, very nicely done. That rhetorical way, that rhyming manner, so that people remember it.
Will not forget it. Because that was the item being discussed. I thought of sharing it actually.
Yes, very
so
nicely.
don't. That is those two things only I put it. It was not.
Very, very good. Very good. Actually, very. I thought it was so perfectly fitting. More stitches, less riches. Yeah. Okay, so continuing with that thing, so there were some excerpts from the story where we see them see this kind of consumerism being exhibited. So one is where the director is watching a group of children play centrifugal bumble puppy, and he says, strange to think that even in our fourth day, most games were played without more apparatus than a ball or two. Imagine the folly of allowing people to play elaborate games which do nothing whatever to increase consumption. The problem was to find an economically sounder reason for consuming transport than a mere affection for primroses and landscape. So we conditioned the masses to hate the country, concluded the director, but simultaneously we conditioned them to love all country sports. They don't like the country, but they like all the country sports. So at the same time, we see to it that all country sports shall entail the use of elaborate apparatus, so that they consume manufactured articles as well as transport. So the whole thing, entertainment, everything is built around only consumption. Okay, so some of the quotes which I had. I also came across some interesting quotes by Huxley, not in the book, but generally, which I thought was very interesting, and it kind of contrasted with what we read in the book. Kind of not contrasted, kind of similar to what we read in the book. So this is a quote which he says, but I don't want comfort. I want God. I want poetry. This was not by Huxley. This was by the Savage. I want real danger. I want freedom. I want goodness. I want sin. And so the similar thing. This is where he says, "All right then," said the Savage defiantly. "I'm claiming the right to be unhappy." And that's when the controller says, "So not to mention the right to grow old and ugly and impotent, the right to have syphilis and cancer, the right to have too little to eat, the right to be lousy, the right to live in constant apprehension of what may happen tomorrow, the right to catch typhoid, the right to be tortured by unspeakable pains of every kind." So there was a long silence. "I claim them all," said the Savage at last. So he agrees, "Yes, I claim them all."
But doesn't it sound tempting to anybody else? Like, it does sound tempting to me. The idea of even the death conditioning, the pain is so intense that, or imagine if you're suffering from cancer or some disease like that, it sounds really tempting. That numbness at some level, no? That you don't grow old, you just die. I think that's quite nice. I mean, why go through the whole pain of
disease?
Yeah, right. It sounds extremely tempting. And for not to be scared of death, I think that's nirvana. You're not scared of death. What could be better than that? So I think he's being a little idealistic here, or maybe because we haven't gone through that, it seems like not such a bad way to live.
It is a beautiful point you touched, madam. Instead of this novel becoming dystopian, it becomes utopian.
Yeah, right. It's like very close. The whole idea is very
when
tempting.
you speak of nirvana, peace, and other things, it is utopian novel, not a dystopian for that matter.
Yeah, see, the Buddha, it's the Buddha's thought, right? That now you're neither happy nor sad.
Exactly,
So
exactly.
At some level, it is really tempting.
Yeah, that is exactly what Savage thought when he was in the uncivilized world. And this is what he realized when he went to the civilized world, that this is what actually makes a human human.
Yeah, right. So we are the savages, right?
Yes, we are. So probably if we go to this kind of dystopian world, we'll realize that, this is ideal what we are having right now.
Yeah, right. We don't value it because we have it.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, true. Cool.
Okay. So another quote was, "The more powerful and original a mind, the more it will incline towards the religion of solitude." This is not from the book. And "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you mad." That men do not learn very much from the lessons of history is the most important of all the lessons that history has to teach. Again, this was a very, very interesting quote, I think, about happiness, not from the book, but from Huxley. So actual happiness always looks pretty squalid in comparison with the overcompensations for misery. And of course, stability isn't nearly so spectacular as instability. And being contented has none of the glamour of a good fight against misfortune. None of the picturesqueness of a struggle with temptation or a fatal overthrow by passion or doubt. Happiness is never grand. And I think that's so beautifully put. So when we think about happiness, we never think about grand things, I think whenever we think of happiness, it's like sitting silently, enjoying the breeze, watching the sea, or, sipping your coffee, or it's the simple things, I think, which give happiness. And like what you said, maybe being free of a disease-ridden world or being free of the fear of death sounds good. But how far do you go for that? I don't know. Okay, now quotes from the book. "Consider the matter dispassionately, Mr. Foster, and you will see that no offense is so heinous as unorthodoxy of behavior. Murder kills only the individual, And after all, what is an individual? We can make a new one with the greatest ease, as many as we like. Unorthodoxy threatens more than the life of a mere individual. It strikes at society itself.
Can we go back 2 slides, madam?
Yeah.
Just I missed one.
This one?
Still another previous.
Okay.
This one.
Okay.
The more powerful and original a mind, the more it will incline towards the religion of solitude. And linking this, there is one more quote I am putting in the chat box. Kindly see.
Okay. The greater a man's talent, the greater his power to lead astray.
That means, is it to do with Mount Chief Controller? Or is it to do with John the Savage? To whom is it applicable of all the characters that we have in the story? I was having a doubt. That is why I had to flash it in the chat box.
I think that depends on what is astray. Astray from the brave new world or astray from the savage world.
That means it is very subjective. Either way, it can be applied. That is
correct. That's what I think.
Could be. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. So a love of nature keeps no factories busy. I thought that was also so beautifully put. And of course, ending is better than mending. Okay, and then this one was the savage interrupted him. But isn't it natural to feel there's a God? You might as well ask if it's natural to do up one's trousers with zippers, said the controller sarcastically. You remind me of another of those old fellows called Bradley. He defined philosophy as the finding of bad reason for what one believes by instinct. As if one believed anything by instinct. One believes things because one has been conditioned to believe them. Finding bad reasons for what one believes for other bad reasons, that's philosophy. So finding bad reasons for what one believes for other bad reasons, that's philosophy. People believe in God because they've been conditioned to. Again, I don't know this. Maybe it's true, maybe not. I'm not sure. People. So what if we are not conditioned to believe in God? Will it actually change us?
Here, keyword is, madam, conditioning. Condition. In the
so are we all believing God only because we are conditioned to?
Absolutely.
Yeah, true.
Allow me to say a few words here.
Yes, please.
This conditioning word is very crucial and is a key word in the whole of the statement. And while beginning, I also refer to Krishnamurti's teachings. What he says is, we are conditioned to think in a specific way. For example, let us put, I am born in a Brahmin family. Let us put, I am conditioned to think I am born in a Brahmin family because of the familial influence and peer influence, etc., etc. Similarly, let us take the case of a Christian. Actually, he is a Christian because he has been born with a Christian community. Accordingly, environment, rest of things are conditioned. So, from very birth itself, we all are conditioned. For instance, one can be conditioned to be an atheist, and parallelly, one can be conditioned to be a believer in things. Actually. Similarly, one can be conditioned in this communism. He is a communist for that matter. Russians, actually, they are communists because they are conditioned to think in that communist way. And Catholicism, that is, so conditioning is something that is very crucial. It happens in everyone's life. For instance, if I groom a child from very young age to think in a particular way, to like certain things, to dislike certain things, I'm sure when he grows into an adult, he'll be conditioned to think and react that way. So condition is something that happens consciously or unconsciously in our life. Let us put, there are certain views or friends are there actually. They can also exert certain level of influence on you, the way you think. Conditioning is crucial, and if you are aware of your conditioning, I do not want you to change it. Once you are aware of it, there comes a clarity in your mind. You can be able to handle things better. Thank you, ma'am.
True.
Conditioning is unavoidable. You can't
Agreed.
As in,
Agreed.
yeah, you
Agreed.
can't, one way or the other, you have to, like,
Yes.
like men, women, some simple thing. So many women fast for anything, say Karwa Chauth or whatever. A
Exactly
lot of
correct,
them
actually.
don't,
Do.
they don't agree with it, they don't believe in it. But if they
Yes.
don't do it, I was reading an article and somebody had written that if I don't do it, I feel a little guilty. So like, why not do it?
Because
Chalo kar lete
exactly,
hain.
exactly correct.
That's
Because
only conditioning. Otherwise, why would you torture yourself? And it's just
Yeah.
conditioning.
that
A
is the
lot of it
thing.
is conditioning.
Everything, if you put your hand on any point and why I do this or why I think like this,
Right.
why I react like this, you will find
Correct.
something somewhere in the background at conscious or unconscious level. Your condition is in working actually. Your conditioning is
right.
working. Yes, that is the thing.
All our behaviors are
Yes,
thanks to
entirely,
whatever
entirely.
conditioning.
Your relationship with others, your relationship with nature, everything, your relationship with an idea, everything is a condition.
Correct.
Because even though India is at fault, in some cases we say India is right. Why? Because you are conditioned, you are an Indian. You are not supposed to look from the point of view of other countries or other person. You will be looking from your point of view every time.
Correct.
The conditioning is very crucial and important. It is a huge subject for that matter. Thank you.
So here I also feel that two things, reading and traveling, that helps you open your mind and helps you understand and change your conditioning.
Right.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I feel the entire therapy itself, is only counseling, and therapy is just trying to break out of your conditioning, in fact.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
See the
Very
other
correct.
perspective.
Very correct. Very correct. Even conditioning is employed in this book at a baby level with that pillows, that machines, that hearing machines, mildly they are all.
Correct. What was very surprising for me was 90 years ago itself, he realized. So now it's been very much proved. Like, even like if you want your child, some behavior of you want to change some behavior of your child, even as a small baby also, you can in fact whisper it in their ear when they are sleeping, or they are half asleep in the, it does have an effect. So
definitely.
90 years ago itself, he knew about this and he has used that in his story. So
and he has used that word subliminal, something like that.
Yeah, yes.
Beautiful word. That is another
Correct.
word he used actually. Subliminal counseling. That means the fellow to who is being counseled, he is at an unconscious level. He doesn't know that he is being conditioned.
Correct.
Actually, Abhimanyu.
Yes.
Yeah, even I was thinking the same thing. Absolutely. Yes.
And since you brought one example, permit me to add one more example. Ashtavakra. Ashtavakra, actually, he was taught about everything. His father, let me put it this way. Mother was pregnant. She was carrying Ashtavakra, and his father comes and he starts speaking on these Vedas and other things. This boy, he hears them. Follows his saying. But at particular stage, actually, he commits a mistake, his father. Ashtavakra says, actually, you are committing a mistake. That is not correct. Father gets annoyed. So he puts a sharp on him, saying that you will be born with all 8 deformities in your life. You will be like that only. He will be punished for that. Once the boy comes out, actually, and this particular father is an advisor to that kingdom, that king, I don't remember the king's name. All discussions, everything happened. But the king has got a court, so another philosopher. So then offer comes, actually, I shall take you to the job if you can defeat him. Otherwise, I will put you into jail. So Ashtavakra's father goes. He cannot argue with that court's philosopher. He loses the game and he is put in jail. That is known by this Ashtavakra. He asks his mother, where is my father? He says, this is what has happened. His father could not answer this king's philosopher's question. Since he lost that duel, so he has been put behind bars. He goes. So let me speak to him as an young boy. And then when he will not be permitted to get in. Raja sees, what is the noise that is happening at the gate? He says, one fellow comes without defense. He wants to argue with our king. Send him in. The boy goes, argues with him and wins. He brings his father back out of the prison to his mother and leaves hereafter. That is Ashtavakra. He has written a Gita also. Ashtavakra Gita, like Bhagavad Gita. There is another book. I'm sorry, I'm digressing the main subject. Anyway, thank you.
Actually, this book is, I feel there is very thin line separating the utopia and dystopia. That is
Right.
what,
Right. That's the
Right.
thing.
it's a very, very thin line. That's it.
If they wouldn't have gotten the savage, we probably wouldn't have realized that it is dystopia. When we look at it through the
Yeah.
savage's eyes, then you realize it is
yeah.
dystopian. Because, like how Tarandeep said, no, we are feeling that is good because we are looking at it as an outsider. When you are inside that world, then you realize that it's not the best thing to happen. Otherwise, it seems like utopia. You're good. You're happy all the time. What more do you want in life? Life's good. Yeah, so true. We can't hear you, Archana. No.
No, it is not audible.
Oh, still no.
Yes,
Nothing.
unable to hear her. Muted.
Is now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Guys, some echo.
There's some trouble still. You're muted.
Unmute, madam.
Yeah, it's showing you're muted.
Yes. No.
No, still.
Now?
Yeah,
Yes.
Now we can see it.
Okay. Fine. There is this problem of being technologically challenged, old age. Okay, so usually my son sets up everything for me. The truth is out. Okay, so I think with that, we are done now. What about the next book?
Yeah. Are we going back to Mr. Nepal?
Or do you want to? I just took out a few names. Let me just see. Just give me 1 second.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, it's better now. You can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I just took out a few names. I thought, should we read something by Australian writers? So I think that's something we have not done. I'll just put it in the chat. See if you can see if this sounds interesting. So these are some 4 books which I thought about. Thornbirds, I think we spoke about it before.
Oh yeah, I love that one.
Yeah.
So Oscar and Lucinda by Peter Carey, which was a Booker winner, I think. Thornbirds is one. Then Narrow Road to the Deep North, again a Booker winner. The Eye of the Storm by Patrick White. I think Patrick White is a okay, sorry. I think I have not shared it properly.
Would you please put it in chat
we can't
box,
see
madam?
it.
I did it. I made a mistake. Sorry.
Please share in the chat box, madam.
Yeah.
No,
So Oscar and Lucinda by Peter Carey. Then the Thornbirds was one. Oscar and Lucinda is a Booker winner. The Narrow Road to the Deep North by Richard Flanagan. Again, it's a Booker winner. The Eye of the Storm by Patrick White. I think Patrick White is a Nobel Prize winner.
Okay.
And apart from that, of course, the Thornbirds by Colin McCullough.
Macaulay.
So if you want, so all these 4 are by Australian writers. So all 4 are Australian books.
I think none of the writers have figured in our discussion so far, isn't it?
Yes.
I have not heard of the writers also. So now it is for you to choose. I'm ready for any of the book.
And I
put it for vote. Let's just we'll vote for it. I'm also ready for anything. Narrow Road to the Deep North. I think it was shortlisted for the Booker at the same time as Lives of Others.
Oh,
And,
okay, that's interesting.
And Lives of Others missed it, and Narrow Road to the Deep North, in fact, won the Booker.
Okay.
I'm not a big fan of Booker winners.
I know.
Disappointed by most, or I have given up. I started and gave up on many books of various writers from various countries, not even being very deliberate about who I didn't like. But yeah, not Booker. Thornbirds is something I've heard a lot about.
Thornbirds is good. It's easy read.
Really good. It's really, it's like, it's good.
But it's a heavy book. I think it's some 600, 700 pages.
Yeah. But it's pacey. It doesn't, it doesn't drag, at least as far as I remember. But let's see. We'll go to Goodreads and check out all the books and then take a call. And of course, number of pages also.
Number of pages. That is first.
Number of pages and Goodreads.
Don't worry. If it's a very big one, then probably we'll push our discussion a little later. Instead of 1 month, we'll make it 1.5 months or something.
Yeah. That's right.
So I put up these 4 for voting, and then let's choose one among them then.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you, Archana. Today's discussion was very nice.
Thank
you, Suchi.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Good night.
Thanks for joining. Yeah. See you soon. Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.